What happens if Iran gets the nuke? The answer is it would reshape the entire Middle East and beyond in ways most people don't understand. And we're going to discuss it analytically through a geopolitical lens. Sorry about my hair. It's very humid today in London. So, first, let's talk about what it means for Iran itself. A nuclear weapon would forever eliminate the threat of regime change in Iran from the outside. Nuclear armed states are essentially protected from existential threats to their existence, right? To better understand this, look to North Korea. They've survived decades of sanctions and threats precisely because they have nukes. America cannot touch NK because attempting North Korea. I don't know why I said NK. I wrote NK. Because attempting to overthrow the government in North Korea risks the government using their final option as a YOLO, I'm going down, I'm taking you down with me, bang, nuclear, right? Okay, there's the animation budget in play. Boom. Oh no, it's coming. Yeah, so this is their final emergency measure, and adversarial nations won't want that to be triggered. You don't want to box into a corner a nuclear power because then they'll press the button, right? Firing a nuke at the US or a US ally, worst case scenario. South Korea is, of course, sweating the most, being right next to North Korea. So it supports this idea of leaving North Korea the hell alone, right? Let's look at the reverse, right? Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, or Muammar Gaddafi, if you're American, right? Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for around 40 years. He nationalized Libya's oil industry, bringing it into the hands of the state, not the foreign companies. He pushed out foreign states by closing down all their military bases that weren't in the control of the Libyan state. And he used the oil revenues from the nationalized oil industry to fund social programs for Libyans and expand the military capacity of the state in what he claimed was defense of the nation and the people. Now, the West was having none of it. They were very unhappy with Gaddafi, right? Oil in Africa that we can't profit from. What? Look at the audacity of these guys. Look at the audacity of these North Africans. You think the oil belongs to you just because it's under your feet. Anyway, nothing happened to Libya though, even with Western disapproval of Gaddafi's reforms. Nothing happened yet. Gaddafi gave up his country's nuclear program in 2003 after it reportedly had not made significant progress, and the Western powers were making development even harder. They were intercepting shipments, they were using their intelligence capabilities, sabotaging. Libya is not Iran. They can't build underneath their giant mountains. They have none, right? They have very few. Geographically, they are on the Mediterranean coast as well, which is much closer to Western Europe. You can boat it from Libya to Italy without drowning, even in a dinghy, right? Worst case scenario, you can drown, obviously. But sorry, anyway. Geopolitical considerations meant Gaddafi decided to give up the nuclear program of his state in exchange for sanctions being lifted by the West, because just like Iran, Libya had crippling sanctions inflicted on the Libyan state because of their nuclear program and because Gaddafi was moving mad. He was stepping out of line. The Western powers of the time, even now to some extent, they don't like states stepping out of line. It's a big inconvenience. Why are you stepping out of line? I'm the boss man here, right? So they stepped out of line. They got sanctions. Gaddafi thought, my nuclear program is not going anywhere. Might as well see if I can exchange this chip for the lifting of sanctions. I can then get my economy going, right? At least I'll get my economy going, even though I don't have nukes, right? 8 years later, NATO bombed him out of existence. The state had no nukes to prevent the existential threat from the Western powers when the West no longer thought Libya needed Gaddafi. And Gaddafi was overthrown. Libya today, don't take my word for it, look at the Libyan state today. Don't take my narrative word for anything, right? Go out and research. And if you believe me, after doing research on several claims that I make, then maybe you can save time and not bother researching. Just listen to what I say and assume that I have done the research and I am speaking truth to you. But if you doubt me, go research, right? Which is not something BBC or Sky News will say. They'll say, just listen to us for the full story first, or whatever Sky's hashtag is. Libya today is not a state. It's like Syria before the 2024 revolution. Libya is fragmented. The people are impoverished. Whoever can, from the outside, sucks the wealth of the state dry, with basically no opposition left, because there is no Libya left. There's no centralized state. There's a East Libya, there's a West Libya at this moment in time. North Korea learned that lesson well. They literally cited Libya as proof that they needed nuclear weapons for regime survival. Iran's been watching this playbook for decades. But here's where it gets really interesting. If Iran crosses the nuclear threshold, goes nuclear, they won't be alone for long. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has stated clearly, if Iran gets the nuclear bomb, then we want the nuclear bomb. It's not fair. Whoa, the Persians get, the Arab don't get. No, it's not fair. That was so bad. Where did that come from? Anyway, Saudi says, not in that accent, we will follow suit as soon as possible. We need the nuke as well then. Saudi Arabia is already building nuclear reactors with Chinese help, and they're already extracting uranium within Saudi, domestically, they're extracting uranium. They've got their hands on the key material. They've got the money, they've got the material, they've got the tech transfers from China, and they've got the motivation. Iran might just push them over the edge. Egypt wouldn't sit idle either. As one of the traditional leaders of the Arab world, it's a very populous nation, the most populous Arab state in the world. A nuclear Saudi Arabia or nuclear Iran or both would be the perfect excuse for Egypt to say, we're going to pursue our own program and maintain regional parity with other regional powers, and to prevent Egyptian government collapse and destruction of the state. Let's say, hypothetically, if some neighbor to our northeast, just past the Sinai, tries something, or we try something. That's the Egyptian sort of narrative. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has openly questioned why some countries can have nukes while Turkey cannot, specifically pointing to Israel. He just blatantly is like, Israel's got it, why don't I have it? Turkey has the industrial capacity and NATO nuclear knowledge to develop weapons relatively quickly. Fun fact, and I'll cover this in future videos, the most militarily industrially capable nation in NATO is Turkey. Except for America, sorry. In Europe, Turkey is the base of NATO. They've got the biggest military industrial complex. Not the UK, not Germany, not France. They're chilling on the western coast. It's Turkey that has the capacity for military equipment, ammunition, technology, fighters, production of, the weapons of war. It's Turkey, right? That's a very interesting caveat, and they would very much like to have nukes, especially if regional powers in the Middle East region have nukes, and they don't. They won't want that. They want regional parity, and that's assuming that China doesn't slide one to Turkey on the slide. They could develop their own if China doesn't slide one to them, or Russia, who could say, NATO not doing much for Turkey. Yeah, why not stand down when I expand my sphere of influence in Eastern Europe, and in exchange you see some of this nuclear technology. I don't think that was bad as a Russian accent, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, this nuclear domino effect would fundamentally alter global power dynamics. These countries wouldn't just gain deterrence against military threat, they'd gain independence from Western influence. How? Their states would not be at risk from being overthrown at a government level if they step out of line, the Western line. If they decide America's sphere of influence is no longer in their best interest to be a part of, they exit. Nuclear weapons would provide political leverage that no amount of conventional military aid could match. They could step out of line, and their government's not in danger of being overthrown when America brings you freedom and democracy because of the oil. I mean, because, freedom and democracy is so important, right? The United States has controlled Middle Eastern politics for decades through military superiority and security guarantees, for example, with the Gulf Arab states, the Gulf monarchies, sorry. Kind of like a mafia boss. I'm not gonna lie. I need to put that in there. I should just slide that in there. It's kind of like, hey, it's a nice Arabia you got here. It would be a shame if anything were to happen to it. Eh? Sorry, too many voiceovers today. Forgive me if that's not your cup of tea. This is my cup of tea. Oh, it's empty actually. Anyway, nuclear-armed regional powers would no longer need Washington's protection for the survival of their state if they've nuked up, fundamentally ending American hegemony in the region and creating a more balanced, non-Western dominated Middle East, where regional powers, not distant great powers, call the shots, for better or worse. For the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next one. And there's a live at 6 p.m. today, and I'm now on Instagram. Search Mahfouz Talukta, and you should find me on Instagram so you can share these videos but from Instagram if you're not on TikTok, if you don't want to be on TikTok. See you on the next one.